A lot has happened over the last 24 hours, and we're going to talk about it. What's happened in Kursk, what's happened shooting down a plane, an attack on air bases, all kinds of things. So let's get to this. My name is Darren Gerdes. I'm just a professor trying to help you understand context in the war in Ukraine. If you're looking for Ukrainian war news, please subscribe here. 1,240 Russians off the battlefield, 21 tanks. Replacement value for tanks, I talk about this periodically, is about 4 per day that the Russians, if they're taken off the battlefield, can replace with old parts or re-engineer or something. So that's a good day. 17 armored combat vehicles, 57 artillery, and 61 vehicles and fuel tanks. Okay, let's look at Andrew Perpetua's list. Andrew Perpetua's list is about 2-1 Russian to Ukrainian losses, maybe a little bit higher than that. But so I look for 3-1 to be a really good day, but that's not bad. Okay, now we want to look at what's going on in Kursk because that's like the really interesting thing. But in the meantime, the war is still going on elsewhere. They simply hunt down civilians. While Ukraine is continuing its invasion of Kursk Oblast, the residents of Kherson are subjected to daily Russian attacks. And it's not just Kherson, it's other places. Morning report by Commander-in-Chief Alexander Syrsky on the situation across all major directions, particularly in the Toretsk and Pokrovsk areas, as well as the operations in the Kursk region. We are not forgetting our eastern front for a second. Like, they have to keep their eye on the ball there, because if they lose Pokrovsk, a lot of bad things happen, and they have to back way up. And the Russians know it, and the Ukrainians know it, and so, okay, that's where they are. Key post sources from the Security Service of Ukraine have confirmed the scale of last night's attack on Russian airfields. This was something. The SBU and Defense Forces targeted 4 Russian air bases in what is the most significant assault on Russian military airfields in the entire war. That's 2.5 years. That's a lot. Sources confirmed that this was a meticulously planned operation to prevent the enemy from using these airfields to launch guided aerial bombs along the front lines and Ukrainian cities. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't still back up and launch these from other places, but it'll be a longer distance, easier to spot, that sort of thing. Okay. Tonight there was a large attack. NASA satellite service shows a large fire in the area of unloading and storage fuel and engine oils. It is reported that since the MiG-31K was based at the airbase, it is likely that these warehouses could store kerosene T6, a special heavy thermostable fuel required for supersonic flights at high altitude. Okay, now beyond that, and not related to that, Ukraine downs a Russian Su-34 aircraft over Kursk, and this was verified by the Defense of Ukraine, the Ministry of Defense. So there goes another one. And on a normal day, that would have been the big story, and everything else would have been subsidiary. But it's almost like it's in second, third, maybe fourth place, given everything else that's gone on. While the Ukrainian army takes miles in Russia's Kursk region, Russians claw away at inches in Donetsk. Now, in fairness, they're meeting really strong fortified lines in Donetsk. But it's interesting to see. Like, this is a comparison that Andrew Perpetua put out. This is the most recent furthest extent of the Avdiivka advance compared to and he put this out a little while ago, compared to the advance in Kursk. Okay, so I believe this is the Avdiivka example, and it's just overlaid on the advance in Kursk, and it's just like, wow, that is something pretty significant. They're just taking lots of ground very quickly. The extended Ukrainian control of the Kursk region has been confirmed on 2 more axes. Further Ukrainian vehicles have been seen further north and are now confirmed more than 30 kilometers from the border. On a side note, that marks the first time that Ukrainian forces have entered Logovsky district at the southern end, the green area in screenshot 2. So they're actually into a second territory here. I don't know how long they'll be there. I don't know if they're trying to go there. They're certainly not trying to march on Moscow. They're just trying to be incrementally sound and solid as they move into this Russian territory. But wow, a second territory. And then we're not even talking about just like Belgorod. Okay. 1,097 square kilometers in Kursk Oblast are now controlled by the Ukrainian armed forces. So that's something. They're moving in different directions. It was 1,000 yesterday. So Yeah. Okay. This is the AP. Ukraine's top military commander claims his forces had advanced 1,000 square kilometers or 386 square miles. Now, that was as of yesterday, 1,000. Now it's 1,097. If true, it would amount to capturing in just 1 week almost as much Ukrainian land as Russian forces took. That's 1,175 square kilometers. And we're almost there with 1,097 square kilometers, or 450 square miles, between January and July this year, according to calculations by the Institute for the Study of War. So, and within a day or so, we'll be to that same amount, all other things being equal. All right. Russia reportedly begins entrenching positions in Kursk region, but where are they entrenching the positions? It's not right around here. They're ceding a lot of ground, like they're entrenching out here. They're expecting to lose a lot of ground in Kursk, which is really interesting to see. Russian armed forces have reportedly been entrenching and fortifying areas in the Kursk region under its control 45 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. So the freshly dug trenches were identified in these towns. The BBC also reported on Monday that Russia began digging trenches near the Kursk nuclear power plant, with the closest lying roughly 8 kilometers or 5 miles from the plant. The trenches' locations suggest that Russia is attempting to both secure its supply routes and contain the Ukrainian offensive. So that's where they're starting to dig in, and we'll see how that all plays out. Meanwhile, Zelensky says Ukraine now controls 74 settlements, which is double Russia's claim. Well, Russia tends to lie about these things and say, 1,000 kilometers? No, you only took 200, or something along those lines. Russian general, and this is in Pravda.ru, Russian general says that Ukraine miserably failed operation in Kursk. Why? The main goal of Ukraine's incursion into the Kursk region in Russia is to seize the Kursk nuclear power plant. Well, I'm not sure that that's actually the goal. It might be a nice bonus, but I don't think that was the intent. Like, we're going to mass this army of 10,000 in order to seize that particular thing. Otherwise, they would have not gone different directions. They would have gone directly for it as a blitzkrieg. The Ukrainian servicemen failed their mission and are now attempting to dig in to avoid annihilation. I don't believe that that's true either. And they also said most of the equipment that was sent to the Kursk region has already been destroyed. I don't see that verified anywhere. I don't see that to be the way that it's working out. And then Kyiv later announced that the goal of the operation in Kursk was to strengthen the positions in the negotiations. Putin considered the attempts to conduct peace talks with those who, quote, indiscriminately strike civilians, unquote, to be futile. I couldn't believe that Putin had said that yesterday. I about choked when I read that. Okay, here's RT, more Russian state media. Unhinged Kyiv killed chance for peace talks, says Moscow. Kyiv has made a conscious decision to end the possibility of peace talks with Moscow by launching its incursion into the Kursk region. Well, that's kind of true in the sense that a conscious decision to end the possibility of these kind of peace talks with Moscow on these terms, and so that's different. Biden talks about how invading Kursk created a dilemma for Putin, and I think that's right. They now have to figure out, I have this whole different problem set out here, and I'm trying to do this on this side, but now I have to move these troops over there, and that sort of thing. About 500 Russians who refused to fight and were being held in St. Petersburg were loaded on planes, given machine guns, and are on their way to Kursk. Their relatives are worried that they're being sent there as meat waves, and that's exactly what's going to happen. So there's some kind of clause that I think is contract soldiers can refuse to fight, which is kind of strange to my mind, and they have, but now they're being sent up to the front. Now, I'm not expecting that these are going to be the greatest soldiers, so it's probably going to go poorly for them, or you're going to see a lot of surrendering. Meanwhile, they're telling Russians, lies. Not the Ukrainian armed forces, but dressed up NATO soldiers have entered Russia's Kursk region. Okay, well, let's actually see it for ourselves. According to confirmed information, not Ukrainian armed forces servicemen, but dressed up NATO soldiers are currently attacking Russia's Kursk region. And no Ukrainian servicemen were trained in any European country. They pretended to have trained, but it was NATO officers who were brought by airplanes. That is why the armed forces of the Russian Federation and the armies of NATO countries are now fighting in the Kursk region. And Ukrainian nationalists have nothing to do with it. Okay, well, that's absolutely amazing that you just bold-faced lie like that. Meanwhile, Ukraine has actual reporters now in Russia. A Ukrainian reporter in Sudzha, Kursk region Oblast, Russia, holding the torn-off Russian flag in the city center. Ukrainian national TV 1+1 visited the Ukrainian-occupied city. Okay, a couple last things. Here, Russian military air bases, we talked about how they hit it with drones, but you could have hit them with ATACMS. This is a list of the range of ATACMS, and there are a lot of bases, but the Ukrainians still don't have permission from the United States to be able to hit these bases. Okay, last two memes. This year, thousands of men will die from stubbornness. No, we won't. Not related to Ukraine, but just, I mean, this just seems to fit here. And then finally, this is an older one, but it still applies. Tell me in one word how the war is going. Good. Tell me in 2 words. Not good. Okay, my friends, that's all that I have. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.